Admiral Velkoth walked slowly across the bridge of his massive warship. His four arms moved with practiced grace as he checked the holographic displays floating around him. The bridge was enormous, larger than most buildings on conquered worlds. Through the transparent walls, he could see the dark void of space filled with his fleet, 1,000 ships. The largest armada the Zephyrian hegemony had ever assembled. Each vessel was a masterpiece of destruction, built over centuries of galactic conquest. The smallest destroyer was 3 times larger than anything most species could build. The flagship where Velkoth stood was a mobile fortress that could destroy entire planets. Admiral called his second-in-command, approaching with careful steps. "We have reached the edge of the target system. The primitive species calls it Sol. Their world is the 3rd planet from their star." Velkoth turned his large head toward the display. His 6 eyes focused on the small yellow star ahead. It looked ordinary, unremarkable, just another system to add to the hegemony's vast empire. "What do we know about these creatures?" he asked in his deep voice. "They call themselves humans, sir. Our scouts report they achieved faster-than-light travel only 50 years ago. Very primitive. They have built some basic warships, but nothing that could threaten even our smallest vessels." Velkoth made a sound that was almost like laughter. "In 50 years? The hegemony had been traveling between stars for over 3,000 years. These humans were like children playing with toys. How many ships do they have?" he asked. "Intelligence estimates no more than 60 vessels in their entire fleet, sir. Most are exploration ships, not warships. They have never fought a real space battle." The Admiral nodded slowly. This would be over quickly. It always was with primitive species. They would see the hegemony fleet, realize they could not win, and surrender. Most species were smart enough to know when they were beaten. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the human homeworld," reported the communications officer. "Put it through," Velkoth ordered. The holographic display changed to show a human face. The creature looked strange to Velkoth, with its tiny eyes and small mouth. Spoke in a weak voice that sounded nothing like the powerful voices of hegemony warriors. "Unknown vessels, this is Earth Defense Command. You have entered our space without permission. Please state your intentions." Velkoth stepped forward, his massive form filling the transmission screen. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of 3 millennia of conquest, primitive creatures of Earth. "I am Admiral Velkoth of the Zephyrian hegemony. You will surrender your world immediately and accept hegemony rule. Your species will serve the Empire as all others do. You have one of your hours to comply." The human on the screen looked confused for a moment, and something changed in its expression. The weak look disappeared, replaced by something Velkoth had rarely seen when dealing with primitive species. "Admiral Velkoth," the human said, its voice now steady and clear. "This is General Park of Earth's Defense Command. We have received your message and discussed it with our leaders." Velkoth waited. This was the moment when they would beg for mercy, offer tribute, promise to serve the Empire faithfully. "Our answer is no," the human said simply. The transmission ended. Velkoth stared at the empty display for several seconds. Around him, his officers looked at each other in confusion. In 3,000 years of conquest, no species had ever simply said no to the hegemony's demands. "Sir," his second-in-command asked carefully. "What are your orders?" Velkoth felt a strange emotion. Was it anger? Surprise? He had expected fear, pleading offers of surrender. Instead, these humans had refused, as if they actually believed they could fight the greatest fleet in the galaxy. "They said no," he repeated slowly, as if the words made no sense. "Yes, sir. Should we... Should we attack?" The Admiral looked out at his 1,000 ships again. Each one carried enough firepower to level a city. Together, they could turn the human homeworld into a ball of molten rock in minutes. "Prepare the fleet for battle," he ordered. These humans need to learn what happens when primitive species refuse the hegemony. As his officers rushed to carry out his commands, Velkoth felt something he had not experienced in decades of easy conquests. These humans were different. Had looked at his mighty fleet and still said no. Perhaps they were braver than other species, or perhaps they were simply too stupid to understand their situation. Either way, they would learn. The hegemony had never lost a battle, never failed to conquer a world. The human homeworld grew larger in the display as the fleet moved forward. Soon Velkov thought there would be one more world in the Empire, one more species serving the hegemony. He had no idea that everything was about to change. Commander Jin-Ho sat in the captain's chair of the Earthship Daegu Defender. Through the bridge windows, he could see the enemy fleet approaching like a dark cloud of metal and death. 1,000 alien ships, each one massive and terrible. His own fleet looked tiny in comparison. 50 Earthships hiding behind the moon, waiting for the right moment. The largest human vessel was smaller than the enemy's smallest destroyer. "Sir, they're almost in range," reported Lieutenant Minyong from her station. Her voice was calm, but Jin-Ho could see her hands shaking slightly on the controls. "All ships, this is Commander Jin-Ho," he spoke into his communicator. "Remember what we trained for. These aliens think they know how to fight. Let's show them they're wrong." Across the human fleet, similar conversations were happening. Captain Sora on the Busan Lightning checked her weapons one last time.
Captain Hyan
On the Soulstorm reviewed the battle plan with his crew. None of them had ever fought aliens before, but they had spent years preparing for this moment. The alien fleet moved into attack formation. Their ships arranged themselves in perfect lines, like soldiers on parade. It looked impressive and terrifying. "Fight like a parade," Jin-Ho muttered to himself. "All neat and organized." On the alien flagship, Admiral Velkoth watched the tiny human fleet emerge from behind the moon. He almost laughed. 50 small ships against his 1,000 mighty vessels. This would be over in minutes. "Fire," he ordered. The alien fleet opened fire all at once. Thousands of energy beams cut through space toward the human ships. The attack was designed to destroy everything in its path. No known shield could stop that much firepower, but something impossible happened. The human ships moved like they were dancing. They spun and rolled and dove in patterns that seemed random, but somehow kept them alive. Their shields flickered and changed color as the alien weapons hit them. Instead of exploding, the human ships absorbed the energy and kept flying. "What?" Velkoth stared at his display in shock. "How are they still alive?" On the Daegu Defender, Jin-Ho smiled grimly as his ship's adaptive shields dealt with the alien attack. Human technology was different from what the aliens expected. Earth's ships had been built by a species that faced problems by adapting, not by using brute force. "All ships return fire," Jin-Ho ordered. The human fleet's response was nothing. Like the alien attack, instead of firing everything at once, the Earth ships targeted specific points on the enemy vessels. They had studied the alien ship designs during the approach and found weak spots, precise beams of energy. Hit alien ships exactly where their shields were weakest. Human missiles flew in curved paths that confused the alien defense systems. Seconds, 3 massive alien destroyers exploded in balls of fire. "Impossible," Velkoth roared. "How did they penetrate our shields?" His tactical officer looked terrified. "Sir, they're not fighting like any species we've encountered. Their weapons are targeting our shield generators directly. They somehow know exactly where to hit us." More alien ships died. The humans fought like they could see through the alien defenses. Every shot was placed perfectly. Every attack hit exactly where it would do the most damage. Captain Sora guided her ship between 2 alien cruisers, firing at both of them as she passed. Her gunners had trained for years to hit moving targets while their own ship was spinning and diving. The alien gunners had trained to fight enemies who stayed still and traded shots. "This is like fighting ghosts," one alien captain reported to Velkoth. "They appear, attack, and vanish before we can return fire." The human fleet moved through the alien formation like sharks through a school of fish. They were outnumbered, 20-1, but they fought like they had the advantage. Captain Hyan's ship Soulstorm lost its main engines to alien fire. Instead of retreating, he used the ship's emergency thrusters to ram an alien vessel twice his size. The collision destroyed both ships, but it also opened a gap in the alien formation that 3 other human ships used to attack the enemy flagship, Admiral. Velkoth felt his mighty ship shake under human weapons fire. Alarms rang throughout the bridge as his officers reported damage to critical systems. "Sir, we've lost 40% of our fleet," his second-in-command reported, his voice filled with disbelief. 40%? Velkoth couldn't believe it. In one battle? Against these primitives? Through the chaos of battle, he began to understand something terrible. These humans didn't fight like other species. They didn't line up their ships and trade shots until one side was destroyed. They moved like living things, adapting to each situation, finding new ways to attack that the aliens had never seen before. Every human captain seemed to make decisions that broke all the rules of space combat, but somehow worked perfectly. They sacrificed their own ships to save others. They used damaged vessels as weapons. They coordinated attacks that made no sense, but achieved impossible results. For the first time in 3,000 years, Admiral Velkoth realized that his supreme fleet might actually lose this battle. The thought terrified him more than anything he had ever experienced. Captain Tejo grabbed the arms of his chair as his ship spun wildly through space. The Gwangju warrior had lost its main stabilizer, but he kept fighting anyway. Around him, his crew worked frantically to keep their damaged vessel in the battle. "Sir, the navigation system is down," shouted his pilot over the noise of alarms. "I'm flying blind here." "Then use your eyes," Tejo replied calmly. "Look out the window and aim for the biggest alien ship you can see." This was exactly the kind of thinking that was driving Admiral Velkoth insane. No military force in the galaxy fought this way. Ships were supposed to follow orders, maintain formation, and execute planned attacks. These humans seemed to make up new tactics every few minutes. On the bridge of his flagship, Velkoth watched another group of his ships get destroyed by a human attack that should have been impossible. 5 small Earth vessels had somehow surrounded one of his massive cruisers and were hitting it from all sides at once. How did they coordinate that attack, he demanded. "We intercepted no communications between their ships." His intelligence officer looked confused. "Sir, we believe they're not coordinating in advance. Each ship captain appears to be making independent decisions that somehow work together." Velkoth felt his 4 hearts beating faster. Independent decisions. In the middle of battle? That was chaos. It's not military strategy, but it was working. Captain Subin commanded the smallest ship in the human fleet, a converted cargo vessel called Jeju Hope. Her ship had no business being in a space battle, but here she was anyway, using her cargo crane as a weapon to grab onto alien fighters and crush them. "Captain, we're out of missiles," her weapons officer reported. "Then we ram them," Subin said simply. "Set course for that big ship over there." Her crew didn't question the order. They'd all volunteered to fight knowing they might not survive. Fear was less important than duty. The Jeju Hope accelerated toward an alien destroyer 10 times its size. At the last moment, Subin fired her remaining thrusters to spin the ship sideways. Instead of a head-on collision, her cargo ship scraped along the alien vessel's hull, its crane tearing through the enemy's weapon systems. Both ships were damaged. But the alien destroyer was no longer able to fight while the Jeju Hope limped. A way to make repairs, Admiral Velkoth watched this impossible scene and felt something he had never experienced in centuries of warfare: confusion. His military training told him that small ships should never attack large ones directly. It was suicide. But somehow, the humans were making it work. "Sir, we're receiving reports from all sections of the fleet," his communications officer said. Fear clear in his voice. "The humans are everywhere. They appear, attack, and disappear before our ships can respond effectively." The problem was that Velkoth's fleet was designed to fight organized enemies. His ships worked together like parts of a machine, following complex battle plans that had been perfected over thousands of years. But machines could not adapt quickly to completely unexpected situations. Captain Minesio proved this when she flew her damaged fighter directly into the command center of an alien battleship. Her small vessel should have been destroyed by the enemy's defensive systems. But she approached from an angle that the aliens had never seen before. Their automated defenses were programmed to stop attacks from predictable directions. The explosion took out the alien ship's ability to coordinate with the rest of their fleet. "This is madness," Velkoth whispered, as he watched his carefully organized battle formation fall apart. His ships were powerful, but they needed clear orders and proper support from other vessels. The humans were making that impossible. Captain Dongman's ship Inchin Thunder had lost its main weapons early in the battle. Instead of retreating, he used his ship's industrial cutting tools to slice through the hulls of alien fighters. Vessel looked more like a flying workshop than a warship, but it was still fighting. "Sir, enemy cruiser approaching from port side," his navigator warned. "Good," Dongmin replied. "Get me close enough to use the welding torch." The alien cruiser's captain could not understand what he was seeing. A tiny human ship was approaching his massive vessel, apparently planning to attack it with construction equipment. It was so ridiculous that he almost forgot to fire his weapons. That hesitation cost him his ship. What terrified Velkoth most was that every human captain seemed to think differently. They did not follow a single strategy or battle doctrine. Each one found unique ways to hurt his ships, ways that his tactical computers had never anticipated. One human captain used his ship's gravity generators to pull two alien vessels into each other. Another filled his cargo bay with explosive materials and rammed an enemy battleship. A third somehow convinced his damaged ship's computer to overload, creating an electromagnetic pulse that disabled an entire squadron of alien fighters. "Admiral, we've lost over half our fleet," his second-in-command reported, his voice shaking. Velkoff stared at the tactical display. The organized formation of his mighty armada had become a scattered mess of damaged ships trying to fight an enemy that refused to behave logically. For 3,000 years, the hegemony had conquered species by overwhelming them with superior firepower and numbers. But these humans were not being overwhelmed. They were adapting, surviving, and somehow winning. The unthinkable was happening. His supreme fleet was losing. Admiral de Jean arrived at the battlefield just as the hegemony fleet was beginning to fall apart. Her reinforcement ships looked nothing like military vessels. They were cargo haulers, mining ships, passenger transports, and construction vessels. All of them had been quickly converted for combat by crews who had never fought in space before. "This is Admiral Legin to all civilian vessels," she broadcast to her strange fleet. "Remember, we're not soldiers. We're farmers, miners, teachers, and shopkeepers. But today, we're also warriors protecting our home." On the bridge of her converted passenger liner Ulsan Pride, Captain Junho looked at his crew. His pilot was a former bus driver, his weapons officer used to fix air conditioners. His engineer had spent her life growing vegetables on Mars colony. "There's a big alien ship heading straight for us," reported his pilot, her voice nervous, but determined. "Well then," Junho said calmly, "let's introduce ourselves properly." Admiral Velkoth watched in amazement as more human ships appeared. But these vessels looked even more primitive than the military ones. Some still had commercial markings on their hulls. Others had weapons that were clearly attached at the last. "Minette, sir, our intelligence was wrong," his tactical officer said quietly. "These humans don't just have a small military fleet. Their entire species appears to be capable of warfare." Velkoth was beginning to understand something horrible. In 3,000 years of conquest, the hegemony had always fought against organized military forces, professional soldiers following orders from central commands. But these humans were different. Every civilian ship that arrived fought like it had nothing to lose. The converted cargo ship Dejin Haller had no proper weapons, so its crew used the loading cranes to grab alien fighters and throw them into larger enemy ships. Captain So Young, who used to transport grain between colonies, now commanded her. "Vessel like she had been born for battle. Load another fighter into the crane," she ordered. "Let's see if we can throw this one hard enough to damage that cruiser." Her crew worked with the efficiency of people who had spent years loading and unloading cargo. They grabbed the alien fighter, swung it around, and launched it like a missile. The impact damaged both the fighter and the cruiser it hit. On his flagship, Velkoth received damage reports from across his fleet. The humans were using tactics that no military academy in the galaxy taught. Civilian mining ships were using their drilling equipment to bore holes through alien hulls. Passenger vessels were ramming enemy ships with their reinforced passenger compartments. Construction ships were using their building tools as weapons. "Admiral, The mining vessel is cutting through our destroyer's hull, one captain reported in panic. Use your weapons to stop it, Velkoth ordered. Sir, the mining ship is too close. If we fire, we'll damage our own vessel. This was exactly the problem. Humans fought at ranges, and in ways that made it dangerous for the aliens to use their superior firepower. They got so close that the hegemony ships couldn't shoot without risking damage to themselves. Captain Minho commanded a converted garbage collection ship called Usan Cleaner. His vessel was designed to collect space debris, which made it perfect for grabbing damaged alien fighters and using them as shields. Collect that broken alien ship, he ordered his crew. We'll use it to block the next attack. His workers, who spent their normal days cleaning up space junk, now collected destroyed enemy vessels and arranged them into protective barriers. They turned the battlefield itself into a weapon. What terrified Velkoth most was the realization that every human seemed to understand warfare instinctively. The bus driver flying a converted passenger ship made tactical decisions that confused trained alien officers. The farmer commanding a cargo vessel coordinated attacks that shouldn't have worked but did. Sir, how is this possible? His second-in-command asked desperately. These aren't even soldiers. I think, Velkoth said slowly, that's exactly the problem. We prepared to fight their military. We didn't prepare to fight their entire species. Captain Yunji's construction ship Soul Builder had been designed to build space stations. She used its massive construction arms to tear apart alien vessels piece by piece. Her crew worked with the same careful precision they used in construction, except now they were taking things apart instead of putting them together. Remove that weapon system, she ordered, pointing at an alien cruiser. Then work on the engine section. Her workers dismantled the enemy ship like they were taking apart a building. Each piece was removed efficiently and thrown away as space. Debris the battle had become a nightmare for the hegemony forces. They faced an enemy that fought without rules, without proper military organization, and without fear. Every human ship was commanded by someone who solved problems for a living. And they were all treating this battle as just another problem to solve. Admiral Velkoth looked at his tactical display and felt despair for the first time in his long military career. His mighty fleet, the terror of the galaxy, was being destroyed by garbage collectors, farmers, and school teachers. Sir, we've lost 700 ships, his officer reported. 700 out of 1,000. The unthinkable had happened. Supreme Hegemony Fleet was not just losing. It was being completely destroyed by a species they had underestimated in every possible way. Admiral Dongsu stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the final alien ships flee into the darkness of space. Around Earth, the wreckage of nearly 800 enemy vessels drifted slowly, glowing in the light of the sun. The battle was over. His communication officer looked up from her station. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from one of the surviving alien ships. It's Admiral Velkoth. Put it through, Dongsu ordered. The holographic display showed the alien commander. Velkoth looked completely different from the proud warrior who had demanded Earth's surrender hours ago. His uniform was torn, his ship was damaged. And his eyes showed something that Dongsu recognized immediately. The look of someone who had learned a terrible lesson. Human Admiral, Velkoth said, his voice quiet and defeated. We surrender. Our fleet is destroyed. You have one. Dongsu studied the alien's face for a moment. Then he did something that surprised everyone on both ships. Admiral Velkoth, this is Admiral Dongsu of Earth Defense Command. We're transmitting medical assistance coordinates to all surviving alien vessels. Your wounded will receive treatment according to our laws of war. Velkoth stared at the human in confusion. You're offering to help us? After we tried to destroy your world? Yes, Dongsu replied simply. Your wounded are no longer our enemies. They're just beings who need help. Across the solar system, human medical ships moved toward the damaged alien vessels. Dr. Jiwoo, who commanded the hospital ship in Mercy, had spent the battle treating injured human crews. Now she prepared to treat alien patients she had never seen before. Are you sure about this? Her nurse asked nervously. These aliens just tried to kill us all. The fighting is over, Jiwoo replied. Now we save lives. That's what we do. Admiral Velkoth watched in amazement as human medical teams boarded his damaged ships and began treating his wounded officers. These same humans had just destroyed most of his fleet, but now they were working to save alien lives. I don't understand. You, he said to Admiral Dongsu, your species fights like demons, but now you show mercy like ... Like people who know that war should end when the fighting stops, Dongsu finished. Admiral, we didn't want this battle. We would have preferred to meet your people as friends. But when you brought war to our home, we defended ourselves. Over the next few days, human ships helped repair the surviving alien vessels enough for them to make the journey home. Captain Hejin, who commanded the repair ship Guangzhou Workshop, worked alongside alien engineers to fix damaged engines and life support systems. Your ship designs are very different from ours, she told a confused alien engineer. But the basic principles are the same. We all need air to breathe and power to move. The alien engineer had expected to be treated as a prisoner or slave. Instead, he found himself learning human repair techniques that were more efficient than his own methods. When the last alien ship was ready to depart, Admiral Velkoth requested one final communication with Admiral Dongsu. Human Admiral, I have been ordered to return to Hegemony space and report what happened here. What message should I give to my leaders? Dongsu thought carefully before answering. Tell them that Earth is willing to talk, willing to trade, to share knowledge, to work together. But we will talk as equals, not as servants. And if anyone else brings war to our system, they'll get the same response you did. Velkoth nodded slowly. I will tell them. But I must warn you, the hegemony is vast. We have conquered thousands of worlds. This defeat will make many of our leaders very angry. Then they should remember what happened to your fleet, Dongsu replied calmly. We don't want to fight anyone else, but we're ready if we have to. As the surviving alien ships disappeared into hyperspace, the news of what had happened at Earth began to spread across the galaxy. The story traveled faster than the fastest ships, carried by traders, diplomats, and refugees from hegemony rule. On the planet Kethmera, slaved beings whispered the tale in secret. The mighty hegemony fleet had been destroyed by a species that had barely learned to travel between stars. If humans could defeat the hegemony, maybe freedom was possible. On the industrial world of Zexanol, factory workers heard the story and began to hope. The hegemony's power was not absolute. Someone had proven that the oppressors could be beaten, even on the hegemony capital world. The news caused shock and fear among the ruling class. For 3,000 years, no force had been able to challenge their supremacy. Now a primitive species had destroyed their greatest fleet and shown mercy to the survivors. Admiral Dongsu received reports from human intelligence services about growing unrest in hegemony space. Rebellion was spreading on dozens of worlds. Other alien species were asking to open diplomatic contact with Earth. Sir, his intelligence officer reported, we're receiving friendship requests from over 50 different species. They all want to form alliances with us. Dongsu smiled. Schedule meetings with all of them. It's time for Earth to take its place in the galaxy. The age of hegemony dominance was ending. A new era was beginning, one where a small blue planet had shown the galaxy that freedom was worth fighting for, and that even the mightiest empires could fall to those who refused to surrender. Earth had announced itself to the stars not as conquerors, but as defenders of liberty.